Welcome back to the All About Everest podcast. I'm your host, Pauline Reynolds Nuttall, and today we're tackling something a little different. Instead of focusing on a single expedition or personality, we're diving into the top 10 most Googled questions about Mount Everest. People all over the world search for these questions every day, from how tall Everest is, to how much it costs to climb, to who was the first at the summit, and sadly, how many have died trying. I've kind of answered these before, but I figured it was a good way to really bring out what makes people interested in Mount Everest. But before we jump into the top 10 questions, let's talk about what's happening right now on the world's highest peak, because this fall season has been a little bit different than normal. This fall climbing season on Everest has been both unusual and historic. Unlike the crowded spring, when Nepal can issue over 500 permits, this fall only 2 permits were granted on the south side. And we've talked about this a little bit. One went to a Polish ski mountaineer, Andrzej Bargiel, who just made history. And this is why I'm so glad I waited until today to record, because I have 3 Everest updates today that I didn't have yesterday. Andrzej became the first person to ski down Mount Everest without supplemental O's. Bargiel was already legendary for skiing down K2, but Everest is the ultimate prize. To descend its steep faces and shifting snowpack without bottled oxygen pushes the boundaries of what's humanly possible. And there are not a lot of people who have summited Mount Everest without oxygen. The other climber is American Tyler Andrews, who is chasing a speed record on Everest without O's. His goal is to summit in under 20.5 hours unsupported. So they start the clock as soon as he leaves the rock cairn at EBC. This is his 5th overall attempt and his 2nd attempt this fall. He tried in the spring and was unsuccessful. Just 2 days ago, he had to turn back when collapsing ice and bad snow conditions made progress impossible. And he turned around at about 7,400 meters. But he's back on the mountain again, and if he succeeds, it will mark one of the greatest endurance feats in high altitude mountaineering. And he is doing this solo without oxygen. But in mountaineering terms, like when you say unsupported, it means no fixed ropes or anything like that. There are fixed ropes, but he doesn't have anybody with him, and he's doing this without oxygen. And if I just looked at the tracker, and he's at about, right now, as of 30 minutes ago, he was at 7,400 feet. So he's just about where he stopped a couple days ago on his first attempt. And it's not just the climbing that's making headlines. Yesterday marked the release of the 50th anniversary edition of Chris Bonington's classic Everest, The Hard Way. The book recounts the famous 1975 British Southwest Face expedition, a bold new route that changed Everest history. Led by Bonington, with climbers like Doug Scott and Dougal Haston, it was one of the toughest and most important climbs ever attempted on the mountain. And it was the first time that someone from Great Britain had summited the mountain. And it was on September 24th, 1975. The re-release adds fresh reflections and context, making it a must-read for Everest enthusiasts. It's a reminder that while today's climbers are pushing limits with speed and style, the roots of modern Everest mountaineering go back to those hard pioneering expeditions. And I have to admit, I have not read it. It's maybe the only one that I have not read out of all of the Everest books published out there. Really quick, in pop culture, you know when you see something or hear something, it seems to pop up everywhere? Well, I'm watching the TV series The Good Wife, and I think they started it back in 2006 or 2007. I've never watched it before. There's really nothing currently on, and I need something to binge watch when I'm doing laundry. And so I started The Good Wife. And so season 3, episode 2 is called The Death Zone. And ironically, it's about a mountaineer that goes on Mount Everest and he dies. And his friend publishes a book, and there was another mountaineer that was with him that basically stole his gear just to reach the summit. and it's a very interesting episode, but I understood all of the jargon, right? Like crevasse and hape, and I could really see what could have happened on the mountain if it had been real life. They talk about the Hillary Step, and I think they also talk about K2. I'm not sure, but that's what the episode is about. And so I thought it was pretty cool that, Mount Everest, it comes into pop culture all the time. And it really got into like the dangers of not having oxygen and how it can cause you to hallucinate, especially in the death zone. So you should watch that episode. I think it could probably be a standalone piece. And everything seems to be calm in Nepal now that it's been a couple of weeks since the riots. There hasn't seemed to been anything new. Oh my goodness, I'm so tongue tied tonight, and still my throat is a little hoarse. All right, to get to the top 10 questions asked on Google about Mount Everest. Question number 1, where is Mount Everest located? Everest straddles the border between Nepal and Tibet, the autonomous region of China. On the Nepali side, climbers approach through the Khumbu Valley, home to Sherpa communities and the famous South Col route. On the Tibetan side, expeditions ascend via the North Ridge. Each side has its own culture, challenges, and political hurdles. Beyond geography, Everest is also a cultural landmark. Locals have long called it by other names, including Sagarmatha in Nepal, meaning forehead of the sky, and Chomolungma in Tibet, meaning mother goddess of the world. These names reflect the mountain's sacredness long before it was renamed Everest by Western surveyors. And remember, it was named after Sir Everest, so we might be saying it wrong. Question number 2, what mountain range is Everest in? Everest is part of the Himalayas, the grandest mountain range on Earth, stretching across 5 countries. The Himalayas are geologically young, formed about 16 million years ago when the Indian plate collided with Eurasia. That collision continues today, and Everest is still growing a few millimeters each year. So not only is Everest the tallest, but it's also a mountain still in motion, a living monument to Earth's restless geology, and it keeps getting higher and higher. Question number 3. How tall is Mount Everest? The official height agreed upon by Nepal and China in 2022 when it was remeasured is 8,848.86 meters or 29,031.7 feet. But over the years, measurements have varied. Early British surveyors in the 1800s recorded slightly different numbers, and later measurements in 1999 and 2005 produced their own results. Why the confusion? Part of it depends on whether you measure the snow and ice cap or just the rock base. Earthquakes and glacial melt can also shift the summit's height. This isn't static, it's constantly changing. Question number 4. How do you climb Mount Everest? Well, if you've listened to enough episodes, you know that it's very individual and everyone's journey is a little bit different. And it also depends on if you're trying to break a record or if you tried 30 years ago or even now. Climbing Everest is a marathon, not a sprint. On the south side, climbers trek to base camp, then spend weeks making rotations up and down the mountain to acclimatize. They face the Khumbu Icefall, the Lhotse Face, the South Col, and finally the summit ridge. On the north side, climbers face colder temperatures, stronger winds, and longest exposed ridges. But there's no icefall, which is considered the most dangerous area on the mountain. Either way, Everest requires patience, strength, and resilience. It's not just about getting up, it's about surviving the journey back down, and more people die coming down than going up. There's your interesting fact for today. Question number 5. How long does it take to climb Everest? Well, it depends. With new technology and things like that, it can take 2 to 3 weeks if you don't acclimatize the old-fashioned way. But if you acclimatize the old-fashioned way, a full expedition lasts 6 to 10 weeks. That includes the trek to base camp on the south side, acclimatization climbs, rest days, and waiting for a summit window. Without proper acclimatization, climbers risk severe altitude sickness or death. The summit push itself takes 5 to 7 days, but weather delays can keep teams stuck at base camp for weeks. It's a waiting game as much as a climb. Question number 6. How much does it cost to climb Everest? The cost is one of the mountain's most talked about aspects. The Nepali permit alone cost $11,000. Add oxygen, Sherpa support, guides, insurance, gear, and logistics. And it also depends on what side of the mountain you climb from. Most climbers spend 35,000 to 70,000, and luxury expeditions can run over $100,000. Cheaper operators may save money by cutting corners on safety, while luxury ones provide heated tents, chefs, and Wi-Fi. Either way, Everest is both a financial and physical investment. And cheaper may not always be better. It's very important. We did an episode on this, how to choose a guide when you're going to climb Mount Everest. You really need to look at the safety records. And I'm not saying that cheaper is a worse decision because maybe it's not safer. It really depends on so many different things. Question number 7. Who was the first person to climb Everest? The first confirmed ascent came on May 29th, 1953, when Sir Edmund Hillary of New Zealand and Tenzing Norgay Sherpa of Nepal reached the summit together. Their achievement was a triumph of teamwork and perseverance. But the mystery of George Mallory and Andrew Irvine's 1924 expedition still lingers. Mallory's body was found in 1999, and last year they believe that they found Irvine's foot. But the rest of Irvine and the small camera that they carried remain missing. If the film ever proves they reached the summit, the history of Everest may change. And, we've talked about this a lot. So, what do you think? Who do you think summited first? Do you think it was George Mallory and Sandy Irvine, or do you truly believe that it was Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay? And fun fact, Tenzing Norgay didn't remember when his birthday was, so he chose May 29th, the day that they summited. Question number 8. Who is the youngest person to summit Everest? The youngest climber is Jordan Romero, who summited from Tibet in 2010 at just 13 years old. The youngest girl is Malavath Purna, also 13, who summited from Nepal. These claims raised big ethical questions. Should children be on Mount Everest at all? The risks are immense, even for adults. Nepal now forces a minimum climbing age of 16, but the records stand. A lot of mountaineers say that it really shouldn't be considered a record because ultimately they were accompanied by a pretty big support staff. And I don't know. I've talked about this before, but I don't know if I would allow my kids to climb it. My daughter's 15. She just turned 15, and I don't think I would let her do it. I think that, when she turns 18, if it's something that she wants to do, great, but that's an adult decision to make. It's not a decision that a parent should pick for a child because ultimately, when you choose to climb Mount Everest, you are basically choosing to put your life at risk. And I don't believe that you should be putting anyone else at risk besides yourself, especially your own children. Question number 9. How many people have climbed Everest? As of 2025, more than 6,600 people have summited Everest, with over 12,000 total summits. Many are repeat climbers, especially Sherpas, who often summit multiple times in a single season, like Cami Rita Sherpa. Each spring, 500 to 600 climbers attempt Everest. The numbers keep growing, raising concerns about overcrowding, traffic jams at the summit, and inexperienced climbers creating dangerous situations. And that's one of the things that draw people in to these fall attempts is that there's hardly anybody there. And so you don't have to worry about the overcrowding, but you do have to worry about other issues. And last but not least, question number 10. How many people have died on Everest? Since expeditions began, more than 330 climbers have died on Everest. Some years, stand out: 2014, when 16 Sherpas died in the icefall, and 2015, when an earthquake triggered avalanche killed 22 at base camp, and 2023, the deadliest climbing season, when 18 climbers perished. And when you look at that number of 330, some people don't count the 22 that died at base camp in 2015 just because it wasn't on the actual mountain. It just depends on who's telling the story and how they keep track. Most bodies remain on the mountain, frozen where they fell. Some have even become landmarks along the routes, like Green Boots. He was a landmark for a really long time, and as far as I know, his body has been moved. Everest inspires dreams, but it also demands a heavy price. And again, if you choose to climb Mount Everest, you are putting your life at risk. And there you have it, the top 10 most Googled questions about Mount Everest, from its location and heights to the cost, records, and risks. These are things people around the world want to know. Everest is more than just a mountain, it's a symbol of ambition, adventure, and human endurance. Whether you're standing on its slopes or just Googling it from home, Everest captures the imagination like nothing else. I'm not sure what next week's episode is going to be. I know it will be on time because I don't plan on getting sick again. And I do have some interviews lined up, but most of them are lined up like in the next couple of months and nothing current. There are a couple of people I've interviewed in the past that I think I'll reach out to them again and see if they can do something on the fly. But I want to hear from you guys. I want you guys to tell me what you want to hear about. Is there a particular person that you want me to reach out for an interview? Do you want me to cover certain topics? Do you want me to do book comparisons? I really want to hear from all of you. You guys know my email. You can also find me on social media. And I have a huge ask. So, because I was gone for so long, my numbers kind of tanked. And even though I have over 110,000 downloads, the thing is that my ratings have dropped. I went from like a 4.8 to 3.2. So I really, really encourage you guys, especially those who love the podcast, please, please, please rate and review. I can't ask you, or I can't ask you, but I really can't stress how important it is because of all the craziness in the last year. It has really hurt my rankings, and slowly it's going back up. But when you rate and subscribe and you leave a review, especially on Apple, it really helps my numbers and it also helps my visibility. And I also wanted to remind you guys that you can also now find me on YouTube under the podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. You can find me on social media at Mama Bear Outdoors and at All About Everest Podcast. We also have the free Everest community on Skool for discussions, updates, and maybe even a book club. Until next time, climb your own climb. Cheers!